Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. In this video, I would like to continue my series on doing first-person graphics. So let's sum up what we've done so far. We want to create a system where we can have a two-dimensional array, so essentially a map of a dungeon, divided into squares, and each square is either open space or is a solid block of impassable wall. We want to be able to decide on coordinates and a direction for a player character within that dungeon, and then we want to be able to display to the player a representation of what the player character would see at that particular position and looking in that particular direction. And we've made a template which can, by turning on and off different blocks, encompass all of the possibilities that could happen within that very limited framework. Having done that, we need to turn that template from a GIMP file, an .xcf file. We need to turn that into a file or files that a web browser can use, and therefore that we can use as part of a Twine game. And I say files because while we could make graphics representing each possible situation, that would require a lot of graphics and a lot of work, and we can use far fewer graphics by dividing the display up into vertical strips and then just looking at the possibilities within that strip and creating graphics for each of those possibilities, and there'll be far fewer, and then we combine those strips to create an entire display. And we've done graphics for the right-hand side of the screen up to and including this black horizontal line, or the pixels where that line would be if it's not present. And we've done the same thing on the other side. So in this video, we're going to start to work on this center bit. Now, when you start flipping blocks on and off, thus, one thing becomes very obvious very quickly, and that is that if this one is on, the one that is the layer F, because it's one square forward of the player's current position, if that one's on, nothing else matters in the center. If this F is on, you can turn on and off the side ones like that one, but the ones that are limited to this bit in here, there's no change flipping them on and off. You can see the only changes that are happening are on the sides. I can turn off this one, but that doesn't make a difference to the pixels in here. It only makes a difference to the pixels on the side. So in other words, this F block covers every possibility if it's present. So I've decided to name that possibility F. Normally, of course, you'd call it center, but we're using center for other things. So I've called it F, and we need to export the graphics that we're looking at here, but not the side bits. So the way we do that, if we're sort of starting again and we've forgotten how wide these side panels are, we might want to measure them. So we use the measure tool, which is here, and if we click, and if we get it right, I'll zoom in to make sure that we get it right, because this needs to be done. This needs to be right, sort of to the pixel. We get 84 width that way, and we also get 84 width that way. So we know that we want to change this display, but we want to shave off 84 pixels here and 84 pixels here. So we go to canvas size. There isn't a way of saying get rid of a certain number of pixels. You have to put in what the final width will be. But we can just work out with pen and paper that 644 minus 2 times 84, which is to say 168. 644 minus 168 is 476. And because this is symmetrical, because we want to get rid of as many pixels on the left hand as on the right hand side, we can use this center button. So we resize that, and then we would export, and I've already done it so I won't do it, but I would choose f.png and then click that export button to create that graphic. Now, if that F panel or block is not present, then things get a bit more complicated. There are many more possibilities. And I think that it's going to be easier to divide this center into 3 further strips. So if the F block is present, we'll have a single graphic which we'll display, and if it's not present, we'll display 3 graphics instead that sort of add up to the same size. So we're going to do one that is up to this black line and including the black line, another one that's starting here and up to and including that black line, and then a third one which is the one in the middle. In the when we were doing the side data, we found it easier to treat the vertical lines as a separate graphic, but in this case I think it is better to treat them as just part of the wider panel. So this time, if we measure, and by the way, every time we measure a width, we should get a multiple of 4, because remember we had a small picture and then we multiplied the width by 400% and the height by 400%, turning every pixel into a 4x4 block of pixels. So every time we have a width that is between one of the old pixels and the other, it should be a multiple of 4, because every one of those old pixels is turned into 4x4 new pixels. So if we measure this side, we'll actually get, and I'll zoom in again to make it a bit more accurate. We'll actually get, eventually, I sort of know the answer, so I'm cheating a little bit here. Oh my goodness, I'm going to have to do this even closer. Sorry about this. Because we know that 117 can't be right, because it's not a multiple of 4. We'll eventually get 120 on that side, but if we measure on this side, we'll get 124. So I guess it must be the case that this, let's say, this one is like 1 pixel off from where this one is. I mean, it obviously looks the same. I say 1 pixel in the original picture, and because of that multiplication, that stretching we did, 4 pixels in this new picture. It doesn't look different, but that means we can't center the picture in the same way that we did before. Anyway, let's deal with this strip here, which I am calling center left. So I'm dividing these 3. If we have 3 strips in the center, I'm calling them center left, center, and center right. So the first thing we need to do is we need to change the width to be what we want. Again, that's easy. We go 120. We make sure it's as far to the right as it can be. We resize, and that looks pretty good. The easiest way to check that we've got it right is to zoom in and look at this wall, because we know, sorry, this vertical line. Sorry, horizontal is the other way. We know that vertical line should be exactly 4 pixels wide. So if it is shorter, we know that we've sort of come a bit, we haven't got all of the information we need. And if it were too wide, we know we've got too much. But as you can see, it says that it's 4 wide, so that we know that that's right. Now, as far as I can tell, there are 4 possibilities for what could be happening in this strip, the center left. And I've written them down here in this guide diagram, and I'll zoom in. All of this stuff down here is only if F isn't present. So we could have the block FL could be present, which is that one. That's one possibility. That one could be not, FL could be not present, but FFL could be present, which is that one. Neither of those two could be present, but FF is present. Now, turn off FFL. Now, I'm turning off FF, turning FF on and off. You might not see a lot of difference, but there is actually a difference, and I'll zoom in to show you. It's a very tiny difference. It's just that one set of pixels up there, and this one here. It's just the black line that's the outline of FF showing up on that white line here. So it's a tiny little difference, but it is a difference. And then the fourth possibility is that FF is not present. So what we do is we do what we did last video. We go through each of these possibilities and we export it as a graphic. So FL, we export that. I've decided to call it CL1, as we can see in here. Then we turn that off and turn FFL on. We'd export that. We turn that off and put, sorry, it didn't go off. There we go. We turn that off and make sure FF is on and export that. And finally, we turn that FF off and export that. And that is CL, the center left strip. Now, of course, CR, the center right strip, is going to be exactly the same, except that everything's flipped horizontally, and we won't be calling them CL1, CL2, etc. We'll be calling them CR1, CR2, etc. So I won't bother showing you those, but we'll just see if we can. There we go. So we go back to the situation. Now we need to change the canvas so that it's just this, the center bit, and remember that it shouldn't include this line and it shouldn't include this line. So we need to do that in two stages, 2 moves. First thing, we're going to get rid of this side, and then we're going to get rid of this side, or at least we're going to move it out of the display. So we go image, canvas size. We see that it's 476. We know that we want to get rid of 120 pixels over that side. We know that minus 120 pixels is going to be 356. And we move it over so that it's getting rid of the right bit. And now we know that we need to get rid of 124 pixels on this side, at least. Let me just double check that. Let's say if we were uncertain, we might want to. Yep, it's 124. So we need to get rid of 124 pixels on that side. So we go image, canvas size. What's 124? Minus 124 from the width? Well, that's going to be 232. And it's the bit, it's like framing the bit that we want. So we choose resize, and we've got the panel we want. Now we might want to check by moving the FF panel 1 pixel to the right and 1 pixel to the left, as we did before. It's a little bit hard to see, actually. Let's do this again. Let's zoom in because everything's a bit dark. So we go. Yep, I can see. I don't know if you can see that on the window, but there is a thin black vertical line when I do that, which is what we expected, and the same on that side as well. Okay, so the center, that's what I'm calling this bit. There are 5 possibilities that I can work out. The first one is that FF is present. FF is this black here. And if that's true, we're going to call that CC1. Again, I won't export it because I've done it already. And then if CC1 is not present, we have 4 possibilities. Sorry, if FF is not present, we have 4 possibilities based on these 2 blocks, which are FFR and FFL. And they can both be present or absent, and so that makes 2 times 2 possibilities, which is 4. And you can see I've written them down here. If they're both there, we call that 2. If the right is there, we call that 3. If the left's there, we call that 4. And if neither's there, we call that 5. So what we would do then is we go through all the possibilities, exporting as whatever name we've given it in the guide PNG. And having done that, we now have, and we click on that, we make sure not to save it because we don't want to save it like that. We want it to look like it did at the beginning. We want it to look like this in case we need to go back to it with the complete width. All right, so having done that, we started by saying that we might have to have 256 separate graphics. Well, we've actually reduced it considerably. We've got 4 left ones, 4 right ones, so that's 8. 5 for the horizontal line on the left, 5 for the right, so that's 18 in total. 1, that's 19. Center left and center right is another 8, so that's 27. And then we've got these 5. So that is, I think, 32 graphics. So we've reduced it from 256 to 32 by dividing the screen into strips. So it's a quite powerful tool for reducing our workload. So now we should have all the graphics we need. So the next step, the one that I will look at in the next video, is that we look at the code of how to display it. And the code's going to be very similar to the reasoning that we've been going through in naming these files. So what I mean is, we've said of the left strip, we've said, well, if L is present, then use L1. If it's not, then is FL present? Well, if so, use L2. If neither of those are true, but FFL is present, then use L3. And if none of those are present, then use L4. Well, that's virtually an if, else structure. In other words, it should be very easy to turn it into code and therefore to display what we need displayed. But that is something that I will save for next time. For now, I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you will tune in next time.